Hey everyone! Today's story is about a woman whose husband is driving her crazy with questions about why she isn't as good a wife as his friend's wife. A couple of months ago, Vadim, that's my husband's name, and I decided to go to the neighboring city for the birthday of his childhood friend. If I had known what this trip would turn into for our family, I would have insisted on staying home. My husband's friend is named Igor. He is a quite successful businessman in the technology field. Igor's family is the complete opposite of ours. They have a large house with expensive renovations, a new premium last car, and a decent amount in the bank account. Igor's wife, Lisa, doesn't work and dedicates all her time to herself and the kids. By the time we turned 30, my husband and I only had a mortgage, purchased apartment and loans for an old foreign car, and household appliances. We work equally and earn decent money by the standards of our city. However, despite this, a large part of our income goes towards mortgage and loans. In other words, we live like any ordinary family. So, the friend's anniversary went off at the highest level. Igor and Lisa welcomed us warmly. The celebration took place in an expensive restaurant, and the birthday boy and the guests were delighted. However, the same couldn't be said for my husband. Returning from the celebration, he seemed like a different person. Having seen the lifestyle of his friend, who came from a similarly ordinary family but achieved financial success, he felt dejected. His feelings were understandable. The expensive car, luxurious renovations, branded items, and most importantly, an organized life all evoked a strong sense of envy, not only in him, but also in me. However, I understood that we couldn't reach that level while Vadim couldn't. Envy of someone else's success led to numerous reproaches and scandals regarding household chores and duties. At first, I thought this phase would pass and we would get back to our usual routine, but I was wrong. My workday ends about an hour earlier than my husband's. On my way home from work, I have to pick up our son from daycare, buy groceries, cook dinner, and do some cleaning at home. Previously, this routine suited both of us, but now I hear accusations. Why have I been bringing buckwheat with chicken for lunch for the third day in a row? My husband protested, getting ready for work. Because I don't have time to cook you a diverse lunch, I replied. You can start cooking for yourself if you're not satisfied. In response to my remark, my husband rolled his eyes demonstratively and left a container on the table. The next argument was about a phone whose cost exceeded my monthly salary. Vadim needed to have the exact same phone as Igor. I want this smartphone. Can't you understand? Vadim protested. I doubt Lisa said anything against it to Igor. Without giving me a chance to respond, Vadim slammed the door and left the apartment. Reproaches were not only about household inconveniences, they also extended to my appearance. You've gained weight. Why don't you want to get back in shape? My husband asked me. Lisa looks very good, even though she takes care of the kids and the house. I felt so offended that I decided to ignore this question. Naturally, how could one look good when their mind is occupied with how to quickly pay off all debts and dress the child for winter? Similar situations began to happen with alarming frequency. I tried to react calmly to the accusations, but last weekend a situation occurred where my patience ran out. Every Saturday, we do a general cleaning at home, and on Sunday, we go grocery shopping. All household responsibilities are divided equally between us because we both work equally and, consequently, get tired equally. Previously, this was not even discussed and suited everyone, but not now. Am I your cleaner? Why should I take care of the house? It's your duty in the first place. Look at Lisa, Igor's wife. Once again, my husband began to refer to his friend and his wife. But I couldn't stand it, and his wife. But I couldn't stand it, and decided to voice all my grievances. Compare your salaries, I blurted out. Igor earns enough to hire cleaning services weekly, hire a maid, and a nanny for the kids. Lisa doesn't work and has the time and desire to cook culinary masterpieces and take care of herself. Well, if she doesn't have that desire, Igor gladly orders food delivery and gives her money for entertainment and shopping. That's why they don't have such household problems. Aha! So the problem is with mine. Most likely, you demand too much. If you want to come home to a clean house, eat a diverse meal, and see a slim wife in front of you, provide for me and give me the opportunity to stay at home. Pay the mortgage and loans. Buy groceries, medicines, and good things. Give money for the beauty salon and the gym. What do you say? What other complaints do you have? I concluded. I consider our conversation finished. As a result of this argument, my husband didn't talk to me for a week. I, by the way, didn't try to apologize or establish contact because many things about him also don't suit me. But I try to support him in every possible way, not fueling conflict. A story about how all relatives condemned a woman when she refused to help her daughter who lost her apartment. All my relatives consider me the embodiment of evil because I dared to abandon Alana, my daughter, to the mercy of fate. But it doesn't bother me, as I believe that adults should be responsible for their actions and not hide behind their mother's skirt. My relatives turned away from me at the moment when I refused to let my adult daughter, who lost her apartment due to her thoughtless decisions, into my own apartment. While Alana was studying at the university, she lived with me. She had her own apartment, a gift from her father, but we rented it out to maintain our financial situation and pay for her education. Considering that we lived in Moscow, the income from renting the apartment was substantial. From an early age, I taught my daughter to make decisions independently, didn't impose my opinion, and occasionally gave advice. So, when it came to choosing a profession after school, my daughter firmly said, I want to be a lawyer. I was sure that this profession was not for her, but I didn't protest, only offered alternative options, which my daughter firmly rejected. Starting from school, Alana studied somehow, so, apart from paying for education, there was no choice. But even at university, she didn't want to apply herself. There were constant debts, skips, unsatisfactory grades, and threats of satisfactory grades, and threats of expulsion. My daughter didn't share her concerns about studying with me. All the news came from the dean's office. With great difficulty, she finished her studies, received her diploma, and started looking for a job in her field. Naturally, with no work experience and little knowledge, but with a great desire to earn millions, such an employee was not needed by anyone. The job search dragged on. My daughter didn't contribute to the family budget, spending the income from renting her apartment only on herself and her whims. and I had to pay for utilities and groceries. Do you think I should get a job? At home, there's a mess, no ready, made food. You haven't even thought to unload the washing machine all day. A working mother works from morning till night, and you, an adult, sit at home on the couch and go to clubs with your friends. I exclaimed, unable to bear another mess at home, stunned by such unexpectedness. My daughter fell silent, but it was clear that my words had hit her. But I didn't care. Why should I support a 24-year-old idler? Everything would have been fine, but her grandmother, my mother, stood up for Alana. Where was it ever seen that a mother would drive her daughter out of the house? She tried to shame me. You know how difficult it is for young people to live. We would never leave you in such a situation. Yes, you wouldn't. But I always had a conscience. I never lived at your expense. I immediately started working and living independently, and I didn't have to help you all the time, I retorted to my mother. Such scandals became regular for our family, and it seemed like my daughter finally understood that it was time to live separately. At first, she just moved out, evicting tenants from her apartment, but then she apparently realized that she also needed to find a job. Naturally, she wasn't accepted in her field, and she had to take a job as a secretary in some office. That's where she met her future husband. Alexei, that was the name of the guy, worked there as a manager. He was good looking, educated, and knew how to take care of himself. However, I didn't like Alexei right away. The reason was his ambiguous questions about the material well being of my daughter and our family, whether there is a share in my apartment, a country house, a car, etc. All of this was reinforced by the fact that he came from a deep province, lived here on rent, and tried in every possible way to establish himself in Moscow. Naturally, when I tried to express warnings, my daughter reacted sharply. Don't meddle in my life, okay? You don't have a husband yourself, so you envy me, replied my daughter to my advice. Soon after the beginning of their relationship, the couple decided to move in together. But they decided to move in together in my apartment. This was invented to save on rental housing and have an additional source of income from her apartment. I gave a strongly negative answer, because why do I need a stranger in the house in my old age? The newlyweds decided to move into her apartment, and soon I received an invitation to the wedding. Of course, I knew what such serious relationships would lead to, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. It turns out that Alana took out a loan to have a lavish wedding. To say that I was shocked is an understatement. On the appointed day of the celebration, I arrived at the restaurant, congratulated them, gave a gift, observed the general joy, and left. After the celebration, the newlyweds went on vacation, where the gifted money was successfully spent. Closing the loan for the wedding, buying a car or an apartment did not seem to be in their plans. For about 6 months, Alana and I occasionally talked, discussing unrelated topics and almost not discussing their plans in daily life. But one day, my daughter shared what she considered joyful news with me. However, I did not share her joy. Alexei and Alana decided that her one-room apartment became too small for their family, considering the planned future offspring. Therefore, the son-in-law proposed a brilliant way out of the situation: to sell her apartment and use the money as a down payment for a 3-room apartment in a new building. I was astonished by such ideas, tried to reason with my daughter and prove that it was short sighted and unsafe because, in case of divorce, she would be left with nothing. But the power of love can cloud the mind. Why are you interfering? If you couldn't save your own family, don't think I will do the same. But as practice shows, a mother's heart rarely makes mistakes. After about 3 months, she stood at my doorstep with tears in her eyes, holding a suitcase. It turned out that, after selling her apartment, they rented a room in a communal apartment. We need to endure a little, but we'll save more money and pay off faster, was the argument given by Alexei. Now let's move on to the scheme of their plan directly. They planned to buy an apartment in a new building, where the contracting company helped with the mortgage paperwork. By a fortunate coincidence, one of the management of this construction company was a friend of the son-in-law. This friend offered them very favorable conditions, a small annual interest rate, etc. But for this, they needed to get divorced. Allegedly, preferential conditions did not apply to married couples. After thinking about such an offer, my daughter agreed. The marriage was annulled, the mortgage was taken, and all that was left was to wait for the keys. When asked when they would get married again, Alexei initially kept silent and then simply disappeared. My daughter lived in a temporary, bug infested place, comforting herself with hopes. But the man did not appear after a week or a month. Finding out through mutual acquaintances that Alexei bought a 2-room apartment and there was only a small amount left to pay from the money from the sold apartment, my daughter's eyes opened. Everything was done legally. The police shrugged their shoulders, saying, "She's to blame herself. Our age is like that. Of course she is to blame. Even I, far from jurisprudence and legal norms, understand that perfectly well. And a law school graduate should have known that. Listening to her, supporting her, I offered her to stay overnight and look for a job and then move out within a month. She was, of course, shocked, but what about me? Why should I be responsible for her thoughtless decisions? Didn't listen to my advice, ignored my instructions. Well, then get married. I have my own personal life and desires. I spent my youth to give her education and provide everything necessary, but I'm not ready to deal with it now.